Hello, I'm Henry Mack, and welcome to this month's Viewpoint. The cost of higher education continues to climb, and according to the U.S. Labor Department, over the last 30 years, a four-year degree has increased over 1,000%. Moreover, pursuing an advanced degree is at an all-time high, and most public colleges and universities have experienced a drop in state funding, of late at least, and it's now up to the institution to make up the difference in fees. And in most cases, this means higher tuition for a commodity that's already perhaps too expensive, especially given its rate of return by way of jobs. And so currently, student loan debt has reached over $1.2 trillion. And however, the job market is still tight in multiple professions. And while technology continues to rapidly change and business, and thus the nature of the labor market demand, what to do remains in question. Apart from rising costs, tuition, and debt, the trajectory of higher education is also in question. What should a higher ed degree look like in the 21st century? What higher ed model is best for our nation's graduates and taxpayers? So here to discuss the ethics, the politics, and the policy of the future of higher education are Avis Proctor, campus president of the North Campus for Broward College, Lenore Rodicchio, provost of Academic and Student Affairs for Miami-Dade College, Michael Heithaus, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences and Executive Director for the School of Environment, Arts and Society at Florida International University, and Dart Humiston, Director of Financial Aid for Berry University. Thank you so much for joining me. So at the outset, full disclosure, I am an administrator at Broward College, and I also teach philosophy at FIU. So I'm here to remain as objective as possible, and I'm just really excited to talk about the policy behind higher education, because as we all know, higher education opportunity for our nation's students is an essential, both for civic reasons, but also for economic reasons. And so the vice president was on Miami-Dade College's campus yesterday, Lenore. Can you maybe touch upon something big that might be happening, namely free community college tuition? I know he mentioned some perhaps policies regarding that issue.
And the Obama administration announced their plans to develop this America's Promise program to offer free community college to all students. So this is an effort to extend free public education from the K-12 sector to include the first 2 years of college, with the hope that we create degrees that help prepare students to enter directly into the workforce. Yeah. The beauty of the community colleges is that we're very focused on developing programs that meet the needs of the local workforce here in the community. And most of the graduates, especially from Miami-Dade College, for example, remain within the community and so contribute to the local economy. So it provides a great economic engine for the communities in which these institutions are housed.
In principle, you agree with the proposal and the initiative?
In principle, yes.
Is there a downside?
Well, I think the downside is the devil is in the details, and how the funding is developed to help support the program is an important piece of this. At Miami-Dade College, we already have a free community college program, which is our American Dream Scholarship. So if you are a Miami-Dade County graduate, you graduate with a 3.0, and you're a college-ready student, then we will cover whatever financial aid doesn't cover.
Avis, how do you see it also integral part of the senior leadership at Broward College, statutorily a community college as well? How do you see this initiative from the administration?
Well, knowing that about half of the undergraduates in the nation are in community colleges, this stands to be a substantial impact to our global competitiveness as a nation. And so extending this to the community college level, removing that financial barrier for students, gives more opportunity. And so I think it's a strategic way of making sure the nation is set for the future, to make sure our graduates are prepared to contribute to the local economy and make us competitive.
What is Broward College doing by way of, I guess, not only providing access and financial aid, but also helping students succeed? Because one of the biggest criticisms of this initiative is giving more money to community colleges whose graduation and completion rates are abysmal is not going to do anything, really. I was wondering, perhaps from the community college people at the table, what are your institutions doing to safeguard against poor success and completion rates?
Well, we continuously look at our completion numbers, our retention numbers, our enrollment numbers, and from a strategic plan standpoint, everyone's having that conversation around the role that we play, the faculty member, the student themselves, how they own that learning journey to get to the completion point, as well as administration. And so we're building a culture of completion, and not just talking about it, but actually putting things in place to show that the numbers are moving in the right direction. So we talk about guided pathways. We have a nice career pathways plan that the faculty and staff are working on, removing choices, but getting to the core of what the students need. And when I say removing choices, Kay McClenny from the Community College and Student Engagement talks about students not doing optional. So really giving that structured pathway for the students as they choose their degree programs, making sure that they understand the economic value that will return to them is important as well.
Yeah, well said. Mike, what would you sort of think about some of these proposed reforms to higher education coming down the pike by way of some GOP candidates? Marco Rubio, for instance, says we need to rethink how we provide degrees, how things are accessed, how much the access costs, and how costs are paid for and by what standard. As a university administrator, not strictly speaking a college or two-year college administrator, what is FIU's position on this whole conversation of reform?
Well, I think we're really excited to have the conversation about reform because we are hyper-focused on the success of our students. And I think that a lot of the changes that have come down have given us an opportunity to really focus on what we're doing, to be making sure we're innovating and being efficient. And a lot of this comes back to making sure that we're removing pathways to students succeeding. We're really carefully kind of evaluating what our students need to do to succeed, providing them with the levels of support, but then also ensuring that they're getting the best possible instruction, because having to repeat classes is going to be one of the things that's going to rise debt and be a barrier to success. So we're actually doing research to figure out what is the best way to engage our students and to teach our students, and we have this culture of kind of continuous improvement, and the faculty and administration really work together to develop those best practices, make use of the best technology to ensure our students succeed.
Why is this, like, I guess maybe a point of conversation so much now, though, right? Why shouldn't universities and college shouldn't we have always been doing this? Shouldn't we have always been sort of fostering that culture of completion and success? Why the pressure now, in your mind?
Well, I think that's a good question. I think that it is easy at times to kind of get stuck in this is the way things have always been done. And, you know, this has been a very successful model. I mean, universities and colleges have been engines of innovation and economic success and have built the greatness of this country. So we've just seen such a change in the technology. We're expanding access, which is an excellent thing. So we're getting students from more diverse streams. We have non-traditional students. So we have to really rethink it. And, you know, it may not be a comfortable conversation to have, but I've been really excited about how the faculty at FIU and other institutions around the community have really taken this issue on and said, how can we do better? And we are doing better. And we have more tools at our disposal to track how students are doing. So there's much more interaction than there ever was. But I think that one of the other things with the conversations is that we have to keep in mind that we want to make sure our students are ready for jobs, and not just their first job, but that they're ready for a lifetime of success. And we see how quickly the job market's changing. We need creative thinkers, we need innovators,
yeah.
and so they've got to be ready for 5 and 10 years from now,
maybe
not
that's
just next year.
Well said. I guess that's what's maybe forcing the conversation, is the extent to which community colleges and universities like FIU are responsible stewards of the taxpayers' dollars by way of providing, or rather at least ensuring, that their students are job ready, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think
never before has the university or college really been held accountable.
Yeah, I mean, accountability has increased, and I think that lets us focus on what we should be doing and doing the right thing. And at FIU, we're in good shape. More than half of our students graduate with no debt now. And it's some of the lowest debt loads in the entire country, and I would put our faculty up against any university in this country pretty much. So our students are getting a quality education. And we are very focused on this.
Great sales pitch.
I got more.
So the money man around the table, Director of Financial Aid at Barry University. I guess, what are your thoughts, I guess, maybe about the reform conversations as well as the reauthorization of the Higher Ed Act and what we need to do to help provide access at an affordable rate? What are your thoughts about the whole thing?
It's a complex issue, and simple solutions aren't going to solve the problem. We're going to need complex solutions, because it's not just the cost of higher education, it's the debt load that students are obtaining, it's the lack of federal and state funding, specifically federal Pell Grant, which is worth today less than it was in real dollars 30 years ago. It's the availability of student loans, almost the culture of, yes, of course you're going to go into debt. And 18-year-old students in 2007 could borrow $2,625. Now it's $5,500 in their first year. So while the Pell Grant has slowly inched up, $50 here, $50 there, the amount of loan availability has just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying loans are a bad thing. I'm saying students need to be wise when they borrow. And just like we had the issues with mortgages in 2007, students can obtain student loans without any credit check, without any consideration. I'm majoring in engineering, and this person's majoring in taking up space. They can both borrow $57,500.
Okay, so we're good on what the problem is. Now let's try and figure out some possible policy solutions. So we have the availability to take out as much money as we want to. I'm currently $80,000 in debt, and I can keep going if I want to, right? And then you have the inflated costs of college itself. So what do we do to correct this?
Well, I think we're on the right track with some of the laws that Congress has passed recently. It used to be you could go almost forever and still have financial aid. They're putting barriers up against with the federal Pell Grant. You can't take it forever. Same thing with even student loans. There's limits to that. But basically, we need to flip-flop back. We need increased federal grants, and I'm in support of the free tuition at community colleges. I think that's a great step. But for the rest of us, we need, for those students that are high need, we need more high need grants, and we need less loans. One thing I would love to see is to require students who take out loans to pay just the interest quarterly while they're in school. Because right now they can take out loans, not make any payments at all, not feel any pain until they graduate or quit school. And then at that point, suddenly it's, oh my gosh, where did these loans come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one of the other things is it's on us in higher ed to find ways to get students to graduate sooner, because the sooner we can get our students out, even maybe taking on a little bit more debt early to finish quickly,
Yes.
they can do better financially. So we need that financial education, and I think that FIU is working with the community colleges, and as we work to create better interdigitation so our transfer students that we see at FIU are prepared and can graduate in a timely manner as well. So I think that it's
How do you do that exactly? What do you put in place at FIU or at Broward College or at Miami-Dade to help students fast track? Apart from providing them clear, identifiable pathways, what other initiatives do we have going on here?
Well, we're building a lot of these now. So some of it is just access to advising. So if you have students who are going to transfer into an FIU, making sure they have that advisor so that they can seamlessly transfer in. It's our faculty talking to one another so we can make sure that a course at one place will prepare them for the next step and you don't have kind of gaps where they could stumble. So these are all conversations that are going on now that I'm really excited about, because I think it is going to really do great things for our students, which is ultimately why we're here.
The state of Florida leads nationally in terms of our articulation system. So we're pretty unique in the sense that
What is that exactly?
the state colleges, students who earn an associate in arts degree from any state college is guaranteed transfer into one of the state universities, not necessarily into a specific program, but that guarantees there in terms of the articulation process. So we've taken that a step further and are having conversations with FIU as well as with FAU to talk about, do we have faculty-to-faculty conversations, as mentioned earlier, and so we're making sure that the gaps in the learning are not there. And as far as incentives, we're looking at the students who leave us without a degree So we're using the research, right? Students who leave the college without an associate in arts degree and those who actually leave with one and go to the university, those perform better, the completers. And so using that data, we're, as higher ed institutions, we should then change our practices to say, okay, let's make sure these students are finishing with us, have a good understanding of the curriculum in terms of how it articulates from the state college to the university.
Right. Lenora, what are your thoughts on this in helping students succeed and complete faster?
So we've been involved in what we call our student achievement initiatives for some time now, and we've really taken an institutional view of the student. So not focusing just on their academic pathways and the courses they take, but the student as a whole individual. So trying to provide them with the right intake process, orientation from day one, assigned advisor to the student who can help direct them, starting that while they're still in high school with pre-college advisors, so that when they come to the campus on day one, they're ready to start class on day one. And then our faculty have been in conversation with particularly FIU to ensure that our curriculum lines up with the curriculum at FIU, not just in terms of the course numbers and the sequence, but the content of those courses as well. And we've made changes in that as well to the institution.
Another big topic is the manner in which the state provides the monies to our universities and colleges. And now, from my understanding, we're living under a performance-based model culture, which means that the state is holding the public universities and colleges accountable according to various measures, I think 9 or 12 of them, depending upon whatever it is you're looking at. Just wondering your thoughts about that. State regulation of basically everything you all do, from how you teach, what you do in between. It's everything now is sort of highly, highly regulated. What does that do to the environment? Talking about the environment of the campus. I'm just wondering your thoughts about this.
So I think,
I don't think a lot of people are aware of this either.
No, and you said it earlier, we're living in a new age of accountability, and accountability is a good thing because things that are being measured are things that someone is paying attention to and making sure that we improve them.
Does that work in education though? Does the carrot and stick approach work for education?
It does to a certain degree, but it also depends on what you're measuring and how you're measuring it. And I think that's where the intricacies of the performance funding system become an issue. It's how are we measuring what the institutions are doing? How are we defining performance? We're all for accountability. We're all for performance. We think that's the way to go in order to incentivize institutions to do better. But there's a couple of cautionary tales that we have to be aware of. I think one of them is creating an unhealthy competition among the institutions, where even if all institutions perform better in subsequent years, they're still losers within the ranking system.
And if you're losers, your funding gets cut.
You could potentially have your
and
funding cut.
Then it's given to the top.
Correct. And then the other piece also is for some time now, the measures that are used to determine the accountability of institutions, the completers, whether or not we're doing a good job, as you were saying before, some of those measures are inherently flawed. So for example, at community colleges, we have an open access system. We accept students of all backgrounds, of all academic abilities and levels, and that presents its own set of challenges. So from my point of view, if I have a student who graduated with 4.0 GPA, has high SAT scores and is able to complete their degree in 2 years, that's wonderful. But the student who comes to us who was academically behind in math and English and takes 8 years to complete his or her degree, but completes it, I don't consider that a failure. I still consider that a success.
But the state does.
But that student isn't measured. And it's not just at the state level. Our national measures for looking at student success and completion are really a one-size-fits-all type of measure that doesn't take into account the very special demographics that we're working with across the institutions.
Really, really well said. Mike, do you want to add to it, since the universities, the public universities, have actually been living under this policy for a number of years now, where the colleges are about to? I understand it. Right?
Well, I think that pretty much hit the nail on the head, that there are institutions with different missions. But I think that performance funding at its heart, the idea that we're going to be paying attention to these things, it has allowed us to make sure that we're paying attention. We are using data to drive our decisions. We're living in a kind of efficiency and accountability framework. And the thing, you said that they were dictating how we teach. And I would say that that's not quite the case. They've left it to us still to say, how are we delivering, the education? And so we've done a lot of innovation. We've been figuring out how do we do high tech and high touch. So there's this big craze of MOOCs was going to, kill higher education. What we've found is that the high tech doesn't work if you don't have the high touch with it. So if you just throw things online and let them go, students may not do as well. So we got to make sure that we have this high quality faculty still teaching and doing an excellent job in using best practices. So, the performance funding makes sure that we do that. And again, it allows, faculty to really focus on teaching as well as the research. But then I think that, we focus a lot on the numbers, and some of the numbers that get hidden are about living a meaningful life. So higher ed, we absolutely need them to get a good job. The estimate's about $1 million more over your life if you have a college degree, but you got to leave a meaningful life with this diversity of experiences, and we want to make sure we don't lose that.
Sure.
That's a great point there, because it's not just get them here, get them out, get them a job.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these students are exploring options. They're learning new things. Many students start majoring in one thing and suddenly they're switching 2 years into a different degree that they love. The average graduation rate for many students is 5 years to get their 4-year degrees. Everyone's working to get them that degree faster, but we're also creating good citizens. So we're addressing their spiritual life, everything.
The great segue, and I'm happy to hear that the scientists actually brought it up. Because my discipline is philosophy, I am worried about the humanities and liberal arts and the future of the humanities and liberal arts, and as an artist yourself too, Dr. Proctor, like what this means for these disciplines in this highly measured environment, right?
Well, I think
relative to the extent to which we're training people for jobs. I mean, what are we doing by way of creating empathetic, courageous, virtuous, ethically minded citizens, right?
Correct.
Well, I guess I'm heartened that we're already talking about STEM to STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, and math, and we're getting the arts back in there because we're recognizing that we need innovation. And innovation is what drove this country, and it's what's going to drive it even more in the future, because you can go online and get a lot of technical skills, and I'm not saying we don't need those, but we need that creativity, that ability to create something new. And that comes from having a diverse liberal background. I mean, that's why we have our core curriculum that is not just you get into science and that's all you do, that you do get that breadth of training. And we still want them out in a reasonable time and getting those jobs, but we are trying to, it's about the life of the mind, about expanding your horizons, because I'm a scientist, but those philosophy courses that I took helped me in my day-to-day life more than I would have expected. Yes. And so I think that that's an important thing that we keep in mind.
That's great to hear. What is Broward College, or at least from the two-year community college perspective, how do they feel about that?
Specifically,
the integration of the arts and the humanities in
we promote
the curriculum.
It's, to me, it's core, and it's necessary in the sense that to cultivate an appreciation of the arts is an important thing, and to understand different cultures and really how you connect with other folks. I think that's an important piece that if we lose that, we lose that people-to-people connection. So that's important.
Did you want?
What I'll add to that is one of the things we've done, there's a lot of talk recently at the national level about creating sequenced course pathways that focus the students on the area that they want to specialize in, get them out, get them a job. But one of the things that we've done is we had some very interesting conversations among our faculty in the workforce programs, as well as our liberal education faculty, to ensure that even in those very workforce-driven programs, those liberal education outcomes are addressed. And in addition to that, how does the co-curricular experience add to that? We've just been designated in Ashoka Social Changemaker Campus. Yeah. So now there's going to be an even larger focus, not only on how do you become a good worker, but how do you become a good citizen, and how do you give back to the community that's given to you?
And the interesting thing there is that if you see surveys of some of the big CEOs and large companies, they're looking for workers that have those skills. It's not just about technical skills. They want the communication, the interpersonal skills, the breadth of understanding, because connections get made that wouldn't. So I think that none of these are really in conflict. I think when we try to think about building a complete student who's ready to succeed in life.
And that's important because a lot of the employers are complaining that the students are coming to them with the education and the technology, but not the interpersonal skills. Some of them are saying they don't know how to actually work in an office with other people.
Right.
And so at Berry, we're working with them in community service activities, in spiritual ways, in all kinds of ways through our study abroad programs and other things. Yes, sometimes that might take a little longer than 4 years. It might take 4.5. But we're not just creating employees, we're creating good citizens.
But I think that you hit on that need for experience, and so
Yes.
things like internships is something that we're really trying to build up, so those students, get that real world experience, which is going to make them more ready and more likely to get jobs when they get out.
Absolutely.
We're preparing problem solvers, right? We want folks that are going to be contributors, and they're going to be new problems that come up, and they need to be able to think outside of the box. And so in our curriculum, we also embed service learning activities, and so they find a problem, and a local problem, and they get into the community and then contribute to solving that problem. So
Excellent conversation. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I would love to continue, especially with respect to the future of the humanities. But I think we provided a nice framework, at least, for the viewers to sort of digest these issues and hopefully take it to the legislature. So we're out of time for today's program. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us. Hello, I'm Henry Mack, and welcome to this month's Viewpoint. The cost of higher education continues to climb, and according to the U.S. Labor Department, over the last 30 years, a four-year degree has increased over 1,000%. Moreover, pursuing an advanced degree is at an all-time high, and most public colleges and universities have experienced a drop in state funding, of late at least, and it's now up to the institution to make up the difference in fees. And in most cases, this means higher tuition for a commodity that's already perhaps too expensive, especially given its rate of return by way of jobs. And so currently, student loan debt has reached over $1.2 trillion. And however, the job market is still tight in multiple professions. And while technology continues to rapidly change and business, and thus the nature of the labor market demand, what to do remains in question. Apart from rising costs, tuition, and debt, the trajectory of higher education is also in question. What should a higher ed degree look like in the 21st century? What higher ed model is best for our nation's graduates and taxpayers? So, I'm an administrator at Broward College, and I also teach philosophy at FIU. So I'm here to remain as objective as possible, and I'm just really excited to talk about the policy behind higher education, because as we all know, higher education opportunity for our nation's students is an essential, both for civic reasons, but also for economic reasons. And so the Vice President was on Miami-Dade College's campus yesterday, Lenore. Can you maybe touch upon something big that might be happening, namely free community college tuition? I know here to discuss the ethics, the politics, and the policy of the future of higher education are Avis Proctor, Campus President of the North Campus for Broward College, Lenore Rodicchio, Provost of Academic and Student Affairs for Miami-Dade College, Michael Heighthouse, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences and Executive Director for the School of Environment, Arts and Society at Florida International University, and Dart Humiston, Director of Financial Aid for Berry University. Thank you so much for joining me. So at the outset, full disclosure, I am, and he mentioned some perhaps policies regarding that issue.
And the Obama administration announced their plans to develop this America's Promise program to offer free community college to all students. So this is an effort to extend free public education from the K-12 sector to include the first 2 years of college, with the hope that we create degrees that help prepare students to enter directly into the workforce. Yeah. The beauty of the community colleges is that we're very focused on